apyayantu mamangani vak pranashchakshu shrotramadho balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahma upanishadam maham brahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakarut anirakaranamastva nirakaranam me astu tadatmani nirateye upanishatsu dharmaste mayi santu te mayi santu om shanti shanti shanti. This week is going to be about what is desire, how to manage desire, what desire is and what desire is not, and really getting to know this principle that drives us from the day we're born to the day we die. If you, for example, look at a tree, a tree has different stages of life. And a tree starts as a seed, very, very ordinary seed. And that tree, from that seed, grows into different stages. It first goes into a plant, and then something that even an animal could eat. And then you wouldn't think much of it. But the more that tree, that plant matures, the more it shows its fullness, the more it shows its nature of what it actually is, until one day that very same tree is used to help you, maybe to give you some fruits or to provide some shade. So that means that similarly with desire, in the aspect of us as humans, is desire starts off as a simple baby. That's how we're born. There's just a desire to even give birth. A mom has to have a desire to give birth to the child. And even if you think before that, there has to be desire for the mom and dad to copulate in order to create the child. And even before that, if you think, there has to be a desire for the man and the woman to actually meet somebody in order to have a relationship. And if we go even before that, the desire of those two very people has at some point been different. For example, it's been in the nature of finding a job or having a good security. And even before that, that desire was different. It was maybe they wanted to just travel around the world and get to know cultures. And even before that, that desire was still there, and it was in the form of wanting to meet girls and boys, wanting to know what this whole relationship thing is about. And even before that, that same desire was there, used to enjoy foods that were favorites of those same people. And even before that, those desires were maybe toys of the boy and the girl. They were just different nature of the toys. And even before that, that desire, which was still there, was there to say the first word, mama, cookie. And that same desire was there to maybe take the first walk. And that same desire was still there to take in the first breath. And that same desire was still there to be born. And so the cycle goes infinitely back. There's no beginning to any of this. So what we want to know is how to use this principle, which we call, there's a word for it, it's Ishwara. It's something that is provided for. For example, a tree. A tree is just there. Whether you like it or not, it's provided. The sun is already provided. Your body is already provided. Your brain is already provided. The clouds are already provided. So that's what we call Ishwara, something that is already provided. And if you think about it, you can't remove a tree. You can't remove the clouds, or can't remove the sun, or wind, or vitamins, or elements from the periodic table. It's already provided. So there's nothing we can do about what's already given. So that means what's already given is called Ishwara Srishti. And similarly, desire is also in that same category called Ishwara Srishti. In other words, it's provided. So that means it's something that cannot be reduced or, let's say, taken away completely, as is often misunderstood in the spiritual world, trying to get rid of something that is the very source that gives you the birth And the impulse to think about what you're actually listening to, even that is another desire. To move your blood cells from one position to the next, to move your blood from the heart to your head, to the brain. All of that is movement. And that is desire provided by Ishwara. So it doesn't make sense to try to eliminate it. So that means the question comes up, okay, so then how do we manage desire, considering desire can be if we look at it from an incorrect perspective, a problem, because if it's unmanaged, then that same force which has led us from baby all the way to conceiving another baby, from being a baby to giving birth to another baby, how do we use that in the terms of recognizing who we are and living a life of harmony, peace, joy, and nature of who we are, without having that desire take us, never-ending desire take us to the path which doesn't serve us or the community or the country or the society or anyone in our proximity. So for example, if you look at a child who is a teenager, their hormones are flying everywhere. And so they have a need to express that desire. Now, because there is no particular education, there's no particular direction how to manage that desire, they have no choice but to resort to their value system. So if their value system is to satisfy my body, to feel good, then that value system is going to guide where that desire gets expressed. So that means the more we acquire higher values in life, that is values of a higher altar, that means our desires automatically change. So that makes you wonder then, how does one manage desire? Because desire can't be eliminated. And the answer to that, very simple, is by understanding what is a higher value that it is closer to something that who I already am. So one way to observe this is, for example, a person who has, as I said, hormones flying everywhere, and suddenly they realize that there's not much to this, right? It's business as usual. Have you ever had that experience where you get good at something and it's not so fascinating anymore? It's like, well, you know, it's business as usual. I'm in a relationship, it's so what? It's so exciting at the beginning, there's a honeymoon, but then it's just normal. Or even making money, right? We're very fascinated by making money, let's say as a child. And then once that child grows up into an adult and gets some business knowledge, then they start to make money and they get really good at it. And suddenly that desire, which was very on a high level to make money, it reduces. Why? Because the mastery of what I wanted has been mastered. Similarly, when let's say a mom and a dad, to-be mom, to-be dad want a child, and they're so passionate, they're talking about conceiving children, and they finally make a child, and they get a whole dose of screaming and shouting and everything, and suddenly their view it changes around children. Their desire has suddenly come back to a normal, to a more natural level. So that means that this desire is always operating based on the value system that we own or hold in ourselves at any one moment. So what does that mean? That means is that it depends on what is your level of understanding of Ishwara, of the whole. If my understanding is that everything is one here, nothing's two, then my desire cannot be to hurt you. Because then if I know that everything's one, and I'm not separate from that oneness, that means, and that's my value, that means if I hurt any one of you, that means I am simultaneously hurting myself, which is called papa karma, and I'm accumulating karma, which then later on I have to address, because it's going to have a certain thought on me. I'm going to feel guilty, maybe not immediately, but maybe 24 hours later. And so that's going to then have a whole course of a thread of events down the line. So that means if I do not understand that everything's one, and I believe I'm separate from you, and I'm my life, and this is your life, and I don't care about you, and so on, then it's very easy for that desire to lead me to hurt you, because there's no value, there's no understanding that actually I'm hurting myself. Siri. So that means that we have to now talk about how to manage this desire. And managing desire really means just having a proper relationship with it. So now, what does having a proper relationship mean? Okay, so we can take a very simple example, is that while
desire lasts, that is, while I'm having a desire for something, the attitude is, let's just appreciate it, because some people don't have that. Some people would beg to have your kind of job, if you think about it, your kind of body, your kind of health, your kind of knowledge. So that means whatever I have, whatever you have, first is to appreciate that desire, because after all, what you have in life is prasad. Prasad means a gift, it's an offering of Ishwara. So that means whatever you have in life right now, no matter how you look at it, it's still a gift of Ishwara, because there's always someone who doesn't have it and would die to have that. You see? So that means we're taking a stand of gratitude of what we do have. And so we're enjoying because it's a gift. Okay. And now, because we understand that it is a gift of Ishwara, it is provided. I did not create, for example, let's say this house. You see, let's say this is your house, okay? And you're enjoying your house. Think about who actually put their work into this house. All of the builders, how much work went into making this house? Leveling, digging, the pipes, plumbing, gas, and so we see, we don't think about what actually happens behind the scenes. So that means this attitude of gratitude comes from the fact that there is so much that we do not see, and yet it has contributed to where we are right now. So that means, look, so that's how you're able to start appreciating what you do have, recognizing that you are exactly where you are because of those people and circumstances which you will never meet in your whole entire life. And those people are the very same people who, if I don't have a high value system and I think I'm separate, I could actually insult. Isn't that funny? I insult someone on the street, and that very same person made this house, which I get to enjoy and have a good time and call my friends and so on. So that means that there is this endless thread of so many causes that contributed to you being where you are right now. That's why we want to start appreciating what we do have. Knowing at the same time is that in Ishwara, in Maya, in Mithya, everything is vikara. Vikara means modification. So that means no amount of desire stays the same. Whatever you have, it doesn't stay the same. Even if it does stay, let's say you're married for your entire life with the same person, still the kind of connection you have between you two, it still changes. Or let's say that you're financially well off for the rest of your life. It's still subject to inflation. It's subject to whether later on the industry will be no longer necessary. So that means that the other relationship to have with desire is the understanding that even though it's here right now, what I have, and I appreciate it, it can go anytime. It can leave. And I have no idea when. Because as I said, there's so many circumstances which that thing which I rely on actually depends on. Let's say, for example, two people are together and they're massively in love. They're madly in love. They don't say massive, they say madly in love, right? And let's say the man, he's totally, gets his joy from the woman. And similarly, the woman gets her joy from the man. Now, see, we don't know. Maybe the woman's brother is going to, has an accident, and then she has to go to a different country in order to attend to the funeral. And then she, has a conversation with some cool fella on the airplane, and they kind of connect. It's not formal. It's not cheating or anything. It's just a nice connection. And she starts to have a little bit more of a conversation. She comes back to you, of course, to the man, and she has a conversation with the man, and then they kind of get along more and more, and she starts to really develop affection for the other man. And then before you know it, the woman suddenly says, sorry, I'm just moving on. And it all started with something so innocent as a brother's funeral. So that means that no matter what is present in our lives, our father, our mother, our parents, our spouse, our girlfriend, boyfriend, our house, our knowledge, anything, our relative knowledge, anything except absolute, that's a different story. Absolute knowledge stays forever. Relative knowledge can leave anytime, because if you get amnesia, it's over. You're not going to remember anything. So that means anything that we know or do or have is subject to change, because nothing in mithya stays the same. So that's the other aspect of having a proper relationship with desire. Okay, so a very simple example is, as I said from the beginning, as a kid, I will hit my sister to give me back my toy. 5 years or 1 year later, I will not even care about that toy. So then why did I put so much effort and so much agony and so much sorrow into trying to preserve something, knowing that only, let's say, 5 or 1 year later, it's going to be irrelevant to me. It's not, the relationship's going to change. Why? Because everything in mithya, including you, 3 bodies, are also changing. So that means your bodies and what they value is changing, and therefore what I valued yesterday is no longer what I value today. It depends on where you're at, on what stage you're at in life. So that's why we put a big point on appreciating what we do have, but also secondly, understanding that when it leaves, there is absolutely no point trying to put, okay, let's be real, there is going to be a sense of, let's say, death, right? The person's, there's going to be a sense of, crying and grief and so on. But to understand the fact that everything in nature changes causes us to have a different relationship by itself, because it will change. Those people you know today will die one day. Your own body's going to age one day. You will look yourself into a mirror and go, oh my God, this is these freckles and, no hair, whatever, right? It's going to happen. So that means the sooner we can start to accept that things are changing and they cannot stop themselves from changing, because that's the nature of everything in mithya, the sooner we can start to appreciate what we do have, and the easier life starts to get. This is also prevalent in the, for example, a woman, she, you look at a celebrity and go, my gosh, she's beautiful. And other women start to envy her beauty. But then you talk to her, not all the time, but you talk to her and she says, well, to have this kind of beauty, I had 30 plus plastic surgeries. In other words, what does that mean? The person is unwilling to let go of this inevitable fact that everything's changing. They cannot stand their body aging, so they try to bring it back to that old state. And that only causes further sorrow and grief and effects which I have to then deal with later. So it can in many different ways, as you can see. Okay, at the same time, we're still on the relationship, how to have a relationship with desire. At the same time, while enjoying desire, that is what is present in your life, never lose perspective of what is your highest value. So see, this is where the trick comes. It depends on what your highest value is right now. Of course, being the Vedanta class obviously implies your highest value, I would assume, I'm not sure, but I would assume would have to be self-realization, knowing myself as the unchanging I. So that means, from that perspective, enjoy whatever's present, but never lose perspective of what is my value. Because the moment I drop into desire completely and I dive into it, they call it getting lost in love, getting lost in whatever it is, getting lost in the hobby, getting lost in drawing, painting, architecture, whatever it is, getting lost in computer, whatever it is. The moment I do that, my value fades away and I lose perspective of what is my purpose in life. So that's why we need consistent education. This is not a matter of one-time attendance and then walking out and going, well, that's it, I've done all there is to do. Because life is so subtle that it just permeates in so subtle ways that it just becomes the new normal. And you don't even think about what your purpose was maybe 5 months ago. It's like, well, my purpose is to dance, to enjoy myself. This is eternal creation. My life is just to enjoy myself. And then the mind starts to justify the desire, to give it reasons why it's okay. So that means the primary job in relationship with desire, besides enjoying and understanding that everything's changing, is knowing that despite A and B, to never lose perspective of what is my highest value. How do we do that? How do we know what our highest value is? By having this is where prayer comes, by having some kind of puja, prayer, some kind of deity. This is where karma yoga also ties in. Deity that when you look to, it reminds you of reverence, something that collapses one's sense of, makes one humble, makes one appreciate and think about God. So one has to find that deity. For me, for example, it's my parents. Out of all of the gods that are there possible, my parents do it. How do you know? Because it invokes most emotion. Because see, the whole point is something that invokes emotion so that you just get humble. So it doesn't allow you to kind of go to take pride. Because what is pride if you think about it? Pride simply means, well, let's say someone's smart, right? And then they're prideful. What does that mean? That means this is my knowledge, I know this, I've taken the time to be, where I'm at. But what are they at the same time disregarding thinking like that? The instrument which lets the knowledge be sustained, be known, be accumulated. The 5 organs of action, my mouth, my 5 organs of knowledge, my ears, my nose, my eyes. I didn't create my eyes, I didn't create my ears. So that means I totally depend on my eyes and my ears for knowledge. And I didn't create that. So then how can I be pride? How can I express pride that it's my knowledge when I totally depend on something that I didn't even create? The 5 organs of the 5 organs of knowledge. So that's where we convert this pride into humility, into understanding that, hey, I'm where I'm at because of the body given to me, this health given to me, my brain given to me, my eyes given to me, all my senses given to me, all of the teachers was sent to me, this house was given to me by its builders. So that means that, as we said, if we lose perspective, then we call that Jiva Srishti. At the beginning, I said the word Ishwara Srishti. We know what Ishwara Srishti means. It's already provided. You can't take it away. It's not an imagination. It's present. Clouds, sun, tree, wind. But we call Jiva, or the other name is Pratibhasika, but I'm just going to stick with Jiva Srishti, is when the Jiva, when the person starts to make something of it where it's actually not it. In other words, they start to superimpose their own idea of what this is. For example, let's say that I lose perspective of my vision, of my goal, what I want in life. That is to know my nature as a self-evident I. Always present, never not present. It's always here and now, always recognizable. Let's say that's your goal. And let's say I listen to this and I go, wow, I should enjoy myself. Because after all, you should enjoy yourself. It's called kama. It's also part of the 4 stages of life. Artha, dharma, kama. And let's say I enjoy myself a little bit too much. And then I go, let's say, I drink, and then I meet somebody, or I have some kind of a conversation, and then they start to speak, things that are not true about the world, their own ideas, and then I just want to be liked, so I kind of jump in and I contribute to that, right? And then what happens? I go then home, and I feel bad because I know I did something wrong. I violated dharma. I violated ahimsa. I gave injury in a form of my speech. It doesn't matter whether I injure someone physically or through speech, it's still injury. You get that? So that means I then go home and I try to justify what I did was actually, it's okay, I can say a few things once in a while. So that's called Jiva Srishti. I start to create my own idea in order to justify what I did before. Or I start to create my own idea about right now to give me permission to move forward. When in fact, it's nothing but trying to serve my own agenda, my own needs, my own likes and dislikes, my own vasanas. This happens so often. In a form of a conversation, a person will say something and then, for example, let's say you say, no, that's not true. And they say, yes, it is true. And they give you ideas why it's true. But absolutely it's not true. You could put anyone there that will say it's not true. But they have an idea of their own. That's fine. And so they will give you their ideas why it's true. That's Pratibhasika. That's Jiva Srishti. Okay, so that means we want to stay out of Jiva Srishti. How to do that? By simply inquiring, is this true? For example, is this really true, what I think? Could there be another view of this? Could it just be my opinion, or is there another way of looking at this? In other words, investigating what you say, is it really true or not? And this is something so simple. You can even do a little Google search and see from different sources, is this really the case? Is there something more to this? So what we're saying is this Jiva Srishti has to be subsided through karma yoga in order to purify the mind. That's the purpose. If the Jiva Srishti continues, my own ideas about people, myself, the world, politics, presidents, Australia, other worlds, other planets, UFOs, it doesn't matter what, if that remains, then what's going to happen? It's going to keep me entertained thinking about all those things. And that's going to do what? Going to cause the mind to be, in a sense, thinking about those things, definitely not thinking about my real who I am as my nature. So that's why we need karma yoga, in order to purify our minds by exhausting karmas. So now let's talk about exhausting karmas just a few moments later. Before we finish, the incorrect ways how to manage desire. So now we talked about the correct ways, now we're going to talk about the incorrect ways. Okay, so now let's say that somebody takes your soccer ball and you go up to them and you say to them the right way, can I please have my ball back? Okay, that would be the right way. Let's say they say no. From that moment, you have two choices. You can either engage in Jiva Srishti, that means you can, do your own thing, your own punch them or something, because it's your own idea what should be done in order to get my ball back. Or I simply apply Dharma, because that's your opportunity to practice non-injury, and say something like, can I please have my ball back again? No. Then just walk away. Or whatever it is, something that doesn't violate Dharma, something that doesn't injure them. Because see, it doesn't matter if they took your ball away. So what? It's just an object. All objects come and go, and even your desire for the love of the ball is going to change tomorrow. You're going to love girls or love baking or cakes or something else. So it's going back to that understanding that all desires change. So when we know that, when something gets taken away from us, it's not a big deal. Knowing that, so what? It might be useful to me now, but maybe 5 or 10 or maybe 5 years from now, it's not going to be important at all. So that means the other way to go about is somebody takes the ball, and then I go up to them and I get, just get upset, and I call them names, and I call them I threaten them. What's the problem with that? I've just applied himsa, injury, onto them, but also onto myself, because nobody likes to feel angry. Nobody likes to hurt others. Why? Because when we hurt others, there's actually a simultaneous hurting of that one who is hurting. You see? So, and then what happens? And then we have to justify why what we did was correct. But just the justification alone proves what? That wasn't right. Because when you do something right, do you have to justify yourself? If you do something that's correct, it's the right thing to do. Do you have to go and explain yourself? No. But when you do something wrong, what happens then? Always. So it doesn't matter what they say. Just the act of explaining myself implies or gives away that person inherently knows that was wrong. All right, so the other way is, we already covered that, is to move from one object of desire. We're still on the incorrect ways to approach desires. To go from one object to another object. In other words, from material, something that represents a symbol of material desire, wealth, money, success, fame, whatever it is. And then we say, okay, well, I've seen that there's nothing in this material world for me. Not as a form of degrading it, but just seeing there's not much there. And then we go, okay, well, now that there's nothing in this world for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a desire for something higher. And that higher desire starts into a whole tangent, or which you're going to get to, called the spiritual marketplace. So what happened? Nothing. The desire still remained, only the object went from one to the other, but the desire still continues. So once again, there is no point trying to eliminate desire, only refine the desire based on one's value and understanding what is my highest value on earth. Okay. Yes? Yes, dharma. So that a dharma. And see, also now that's a good point, because now a dharma, you say, well, how can I apply desire if I'm not trained to, perform a dharmic action? So then the person makes a mistake. Let's say they don't know about what's good or bad, so they make a mistake, let's say, and they punch someone. And the punching, in effect, gives them feedback. They get punched back, they get punished. So now they start to learn, well, that wasn't right. So even something that is seemingly rude, seemingly incorrect, even that is used to actually help the person to recognize what is dharma. That's why we can't judge. It looks like they're doing something evil, but that's the way their approach in order to discover what is it that they actually need in order to move to a higher value system. Yeah. Okay, so now the question comes up, why is the jiva attracted to objects? What is it? What's so attractive about stuff? Why are we into things?
We're trying to create an identity that means something, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, we're trying to create an identity that means something that is meaningful for us. And that meaningful can only be of one choice, which is happiness. There's no other way. If my identity, for example, is a miserable person, then I'm trying to do everything in my power to change my identity to become a happier person. Now, that action from one miserable to happy, that depends on the person's intellect, on their own education. That's why people can be running around trying to change misery to happiness by drinking alcohol. I'm not insulting anyone, I'm just saying different methods. By doing things that are sort of borderline malicious or borderline, somebody else pays the price for my own benefit. Right? So in other words, everyone's trying to do nothing but be happy. That's all we're trying to do on earth. Is there any other reason why you're alive? If you think about it, the only reason you're here is just to get stuff, right? And get what? Get things that are meaningful to me, that give me an identity of happiness. That's it. There's no reason to be on earth other than just to get stuff. Even if I don't want anything in the material world, I still want God. Even if I don't want God, I still want... Why is the person then still alive the next moment? Why don't you just go commit suicide? So obviously they want something. Just the mere fact that that they want to stay alive the next moment, whether they deny it or not, it doesn't matter. They still want to be alive. In other words, the jiva is looking for happiness in these objects because it provides a sense of meaningful identity that once gained, then it's going to fill my need of inadequacy. And when that's done, then I'm going to feel adequate. I'm going to feel full. So then I'm going to chase and give thousands of dollars in order to get that object, which I believe is going to give me an identity of adequacy. Yeah. So in other words, people are generally spending money, spending time, spending effort, or spending, or investing all of these things in this mistaken notion that once I get what I'm chasing, whether it takes 5 years or 10 years, whether it's a big business or whatever it is, I'm going to be happy. Because of this mistaken notion that I do not know that all desires are changing, and I do not appreciate the fact that this desire is only possible because of this body, which is not created by me. It's given to me. So even the actual possibility to appreciate what you've got depends on your body, which is not given to you. So, which you didn't create, it was given to you, right? You didn't create your mind, your senses, your eyes. Take away the eyes, hey, good luck to the mountains, good luck to all the beautiful sights. So if you think about a person, for example, going to, the Niagara Falls and taking photos, all of that depends on their eyes. Or they want to listen to rock and roll and just enjoy them, lose themselves. That depends on their ears. That's why we say appreciating what I do have, knowing at the same time it can be taken away any day. Okay, so now the jiva is now chasing and looking for bursts of joy in order to fill themselves, knowing that or not knowing that it's not going to last. So they have no choice because they haven't inquired. They haven't actually inquired into the simple fact and said, is my iPhone 4 going to, is that next iPhone going with 2 more features, let's say 3 more megapixels, is that really going to make me happy? Isn't that funny? The person will chase another phone just for 2 more features. I mean, they're running out of features today, right? And all of that effort, speaking to friends, wasting others' time. You're speaking to friends about iPhone, that's wasting other people's time. You're entertaining the thoughts, you're working hard, slaving away like a horse, right? All to get an object that has 2 more features, which I mistakenly believe is going to make or fill my identity from inadequate to adequate. And this just keeps going on and on and on and on. Because why? I do not understand that all desires are changing one moment to the next, and it's never going to end, because the nature of mithya is nothing stays the same. Even if you are madly in love with someone, that is not going to stay at the same intensity as it once was. Even though you may stay with that same person, but the intensity of how you see them is not going to stay the same. Okay, so now...
The desire would just change, though, from being...
Exactly.
The gratification of the love, or the joy from the love, to the gratification of pragmatism in terms of the relationship being a functional relationship.
That's right. So the quality of changes, the desire to make, let's say, the beginning, my desire was to make it work, to communicate well, not fight. And then let's say they sort those issues out, and now they have a certain connection of spending too much time together. So now my desire is to get my own time, right? So I can do some work. And let's say my own time now, in my own little world, now I have a desire to do something, make something out of my life. So now the desire is still there, but my desire is changing. Yeah, okay. So once again, to make a big point is that nothing is wrong with desire. This takes the kick in the balls for the Buddhists. I don't know if they're saying, actually I can't really, I'm not sure if you maybe know. I don't know what they say.
Well, there's an old saying that Buddhists believe in reincarnation but would wish that it didn't happen. Christians don't believe in reincarnation but believe it will happen, would like it to happen.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, okay. So we're not saying anything's wrong with desire, because as I said, desire is what fuels your every effort to get what you want. That means every burst of joy was only possible because of desire. Every burst or every possibility that is being given to you to a better life, a better lifestyle, is because of desire. So we're never ever going to say, eliminate it. There's no point. Just refining it based on what your values are. So it's a matter of changing your values. What do I value in life? And automatically, desire is going to follow that value. All right. So now, as I said, with that spiritual marketplace, the desire for material world, it still continues when one starts to get a notion that the world is impermanent, and it doesn't stay the same. It doesn't provide me lasting joy. So these conclusions start to arise naturally for one eventually, sooner or later. And then they say, well, I want to now know the truth. I want to know how to find permanent happiness, because obviously the world of materiality cannot give me that. So now I want to find a way which does give me that. So now they start to slowly, talk to different people, look up online, read books, and their thinking starts to change. And they start to get more terms about the spiritual world. Now what happens is, the mind that has gone from the material to the spiritual is still the same. The mind's thinking hasn't changed, and that thinking is, I don't have what I want, therefore I'm not satisfied right now. Right? It doesn't change from the material to spirit. It's still the same idea. I'm not happy. To be happy, I need to do something. So that means I'm not satisfied now. And after I get whatever it is I want to get, then I will be satisfied. Then I will be whole and complete. Let's say the person wants to start a business. It's the same thing. I don't have enough money. I'm not making enough money. So I'm going to do something to make enough money. And then I'll be happy. Now let's say that's gone. And then they jump into spiritual world. The idea is still the same. I'm not permanently happy. No matter what I do, how successful I get, I still feel a sense of inadequacy within me. So in order to fill this adequacy, I'm going to now go and do different techniques or methods recommended by the teachers in order, or once completed, I'm going to feel adequate. Same thing. Okay, so now the aspirant, we can call them an aspirant now, they're aspiring to something higher. There was an aspirant in the materialistic world, they were aspiring to something higher in their version. Okay, so now they start small. Now they're in this big spiritual marketplace of, whatever it is. It's a huge marketplace. And they start small. For example, vegetarian. And just think about how big the world of being vegetarian can get. It becomes this obsession about being healthy, radiating, and the whole thing, all happiness starts to depend on being a healthy person. In other words, just the little world of vegetarianism takes the person on an entire tangent, which can last for years. Trying to look beautiful, trying to shine, trying to then do yoga, and then yoga becomes another path to pursue because it follows their value of being healthy, and that takes another few more years to get rid of or to complete. And then they, of course, also something so small, but also have something extreme as I don't know if you've been there, but I've certainly done probably every extreme practice there is to do in the spiritual world. Not all, but a lot of them. Something extreme, let's say Kundalini raising, right? In order to lift a serpent, a sleeping serpent at the bottom of the Muladhara chakra, and got to raise it up to the Sahas, to the Shushumna. So that in itself becomes an entire field of investigation. There are hundreds of books on yoga or how to raise the Kundalini. And so they start to do Kundalini, breath of fire, getting rid of the ego, which itself can be, take 1 year to try to do. And they start to talk to other people, Kundalini classes. And so the whole world becomes a world of raising your Kundalini. And that's all there is to living. In other words, it becomes the end. They lose perspective that it's meant to be a means and not the end. So then we also have things like in the psychology, past life regression. I'm going to go and recall my life and know exactly what happened to me in all my past lives so that when I do, I can resolve them, I can let them go, and then in this life, I'm going to feel free. So then go and see hypnotherapists, and then a hypnotherapist tells them, well, you're just not prone to being hypnotized. So then a person goes, well, what do you recommend for me? And they say, well, you try Gestalt therapy. And then go to Gestalt therapy, and it doesn't work. And they say, go to a massage therapist. And then they start to get into massage therapy, and then that doesn't work. Well, you should go to a Chinese medicine or an Ayurvedic, Ayurveda. And then they get into that. And then it becomes a whole world of Ayurveda and Chinese medicine. They start tapping all their meridian points, and they start getting new methods of how to feel good. And that becomes another end instead of the means. Third eye opening. Open your third eye and see everything, see the truth. This is another common, very often revered method of, or mistakenly associated to enlightenment, to self-realization. Opening my third eye through different practices, focusing on third eye, saying different mantras, singing invoking certain gods, right, in order to open my third eye, and that can go another 1 year. By the time the person's already 60, 70, they're dying. Shaktipat, that's a very to me it's a joke. I mean, Shaktipat is basically putting, a guru puts their hand on your head and they're supposed to transfer energy and make you enlightened. You guys know that one? Yeah. You will not believe the amount of stuff that happens in the spiritual world. It's just, that's why we call it a spiritual zoo, a spiritual marketplace. And then the person goes to Shaktipat and goes, please give me your energy. And then, the guru, has this sort of, because everyone's looking up to the guru, they're like, oh, I'm going to bless all of you. And when you walk out, you're all going to be enlightened. Happens all the time. I know, I'm not going to mention names, but I know tons of these schools who actually do this. And that can go on for another couple of years. So now, that means, conclusion, endless possibilities in these spiritual possibilities, in these spiritual practices, and it keeps the person busy 24/7. And of course, it's kind of like walking, getting sidetracked, knowing what I was supposed to do, and because the path which I was exposed to was so attractive that I totally lost sight of what is it that I really, what is my real value, because of these attractive options that are available in the spiritual marketplace. Okay, so now, let's talk about a summary of everything that we just mentioned. Okay, and just see how it unfolds. So we said desire remains no matter what, whether you're chasing material or spiritual. Okay, we're all clear on that. All right. Now the object of desire changes. We're all clear on that. In other words, all that happens, it gets refined from winning to being neutral to feeling something different, some different relationship, whatever it is. So the refinement is never ending. Now, the person who doesn't know who they are, who's not educated, the scriptures, who ignores the scriptures and just does practices all over the place, but doesn't get knowledge. That's what we call a person that doesn't know. Is not fulfilled, and just like in the material world, and by the mistake, the thinking is by getting the object, whatever the box is, whether it's a spiritual object or a career, feeling better, being richer, looking more beautiful, having nicer clothes, some other examples of common desires in this world. Having better eyesight, nicer car. They still have that today? I thought everyone's got a nice car today.
There's always a nice one.
Yeah, no. A Tesla would be nice.
Yeah.
That's an exception. More friends, better, just more influence, being on the spotlight, even the psychological issues of having an advantage over someone else in a conversation, or being a better persuader, or holding ground, or being more confident. It doesn't matter what the object is in that box. The point is, I'm not fulfilled, and by developing or getting that box, that object, I will be fulfilled. In other words, I'm depending on future time to get something, implying what? I'm not happy right now. Reinforcing what? That my nature is not already full, already complete. So that means just the mere fact of expecting a better life in the future automatically negates the truth that I'm already whole and complete. So that what? Just reinforces my ignorance, reinforces my lack of, reinforces my sense of smallness, but what? At the same time, I'm getting something that appears like it's making me bigger. So what? So one thing's making me bigger, but one thing is negating that at the same time, and that which is negating is the assumption, the unacquired, uninvestigated assumption that I'm not already whole and complete, which always negates no matter what I get, even if it's good. Yeah. Okay, so now the result is kind of like, a mouse who feels like as the mouse is running, they're getting somewhere, and it's joyful, isn't it? When we actually believe, we feel like we're doing something useful. There's great joy in that, whether it's whatever activity it is. So the mouse is kind of like that. It's the same thing. I'm getting somewhere, but I'm actually not getting anywhere. I'm getting somewhere by having a better life, by improving, being a better speaker, being a better person, looking more beautiful, being more confident, having a higher self-esteem, having a better job, having more fame, having more influence, having, just helping more people. That's another subtle one present in the spiritual world. And at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of like that mouse. Right, and feel like I'm doing something, but simultaneously implying I am not already whole, full, and complete right now. So how do we solve this? We talked about it at the beginning. Understand that every desire changes. Know that every desire is provided to you by Ishwara, and it can get taken away anytime. So there is no point trying to hold on to anything or be concerned that it's going to stay, because the whole life can go trying to just invest effort trying to sustain something out of the fear that if it leaves, I'm going to, because my joy depends on it, my joy is going to go right along with it. So then I take all this effort to try to preserve what I have. Understand that all desires change and it's not going to last. That alone can offload so much unnecessary concern and anxiety over trying to preserve our life to be this one utopian perfect dream that we imagine it to be. Okay.
So the desire stays, but the objects of desire change.
That's right. And in order to, because the objects can, change forever, so that means you eventually have to put a certain point. Because even moksha is another desire, right? It's another object.
Is there such a thing as a pure desire, which is unchanging?
Yeah, like for example, breathing. For example, talking to me right now. For example, living. For example, helping. It's more often than not, it's a natural desire than an unnatural desire. Yeah, unnatural desire is, let's say that. Somebody, is seeing someone having a great house and they want to, jealousy, they want to destroy them, that envy. So that's an unnatural desire, for example. Or a natural desire could be wanting to accumulate and have a lot.
It was interesting what you were saying about the natural desire of wanting to help somebody.
Yeah.
Because that can go both ways.
That can always, there's never a yes or a no in Nitya. It can go both ways, yeah. So see, we can't really give you a kind of a yes or no. You gotta, what is my intention here? Is it to give or is it to get? So if my desire is to help, out of my silent agenda to feel good, because I feel good when I'm helping. You know that one? I feel, or I feel important. I feel important and I feel recognition when I'm helping you. That's another one. If that continues, then guess what? I'm assuming that I'm not already whole and complete.
Yeah, that's big in the charity world.
That's right. Or a philanthropist who wants to be recognized by everyone. Why? It doesn't matter if you give them $5 million. Why do they want to be recognized? Because there's an agenda. They want to feel good. For them, $5 million is probably not a big deal. But it's still a desire that is unnatural. But if I give without even caring, genuinely not caring, who knows about it? If I don't want to know who gave it, I don't want you to tell that I gave it. That's just you could call that natural. Yeah. So now Ishwara, eventually, after all of these zoos of or ongoing changes of desires, changing objects, eventually, when the person at some point has gotten enough, has seen both the material world doesn't provide lasting joy, but now also the spiritual world doesn't provide lasting joy, even a kundalini raising, even a samadhi, because that has beginning in time. It starts. And anything that starts is what? It's dependent on time, which means it's going to end. And when it ends, the person is going to look for another hit, how to go into another samadhi. So in other words, even the spiritual world holds the same problem, and that is it doesn't last. So now eventually Ishwara, after seeing you, after the struggling person, puts so much effort to finding permanent happiness. Because think about this, what we said last week. When you put effort into the field trying to find lasting happiness, what happens? You're creating causes, and those causes are having effects. And those effects are going to come back to you. That's why eventually they say the phrase, when the student's ready, eventually the teacher shows up. And they don't even know how it's going to show up. Because of what? The series of causes you've done in the past, which have led to certain effects, which have, quote, accidentally brought you and met path with somebody who's going to end the search and cause you to recognize that I'm the unchanging and nothing else that is changing matters, because it's going to keep going forever. Okay, so now let's apply logic. This is a backup to why it is impossible to find permanent joy in something that is limited by nature. Now, before we go there, what do we say about mithya? It's what? It's changing, so therefore it's limited. What does limited mean? If it's this, it's not that. If I'm a man, I'm not a woman. If I'm a giraffe, I'm not an elephant. If I'm an ant, I'm not a cockroach. And even if I'm a man, I want to be maybe taller. And if I'm taller, I want to be more smarter. And if I'm smarter, I want to even be more smarter. If I'm very smart, I want to be in position of power. If I'm in position of power, I want to be healthier. If I'm healthy, I want to be, let's say, lighter. If I'm lighter, I want to be more happy. If I'm more happy, I want to be more serious. If I'm more serious, I want to be funnier. It never ends. That's what limitation means. And if one puts their attention on this limited entity, guess what? It's like that little, where's that? It's like that rat. It's always trying to find ways to fill its inadequacy, feeling limited. That means as long as the attention is placed on the form, the three bodies, the pancha kosha, the five koshas, you never ever find joy, ever. So the solution therefore has to lie in having a different logic and changing my focus from what is eternally changing to something that is always present right now, right here. So before we get there, I want to provide this logic just to see why it is not possible. Okay, so now we have a person. We have established the fact that a person is limited, right? Okay. Now, jiva is limited. So here, and how do we prove that? It's proven by the fact that they're seeking, they're learning, they're looking for things, they're looking for happiness. Just the mere act of looking for happiness implies that I'm limited. If I was unlimited, there would be no need to look for anything, right? So,
feeling you're missing something.
Right, so established fact, jiva is limited. Okay, so now, of course, they're trying to experience things, trying to experience God, trying to experience reverence, trying to experience samadhi, trying to experience oneness, trying to experience a sense of gratitude, trying to experience a sense of connection with others. All of these things are just belonging to what? Mithya, changing. Okay, so now, the limited jiva does what? It engages in limited objects. Okay, so now let's stop there. Why do we call the entire spiritual market? Okay, let's go back to the material world. If I have $1 million, I don't have $2 million. Okay, so now let's go to the spiritual world. If I stay in samadhi, the state of bliss, for 1 hour, what about 2 hours? So in other words, I'm trying to engage, a limited person is trying to engage in a limited object which is in limited realm of time and space, and I am seeking limitlessness from what is by its nature limited. Limited jiva trying to find limitlessness by trying to what? Engage in a limited object. Limited person engaging in a limited object trying to find limitlessness. Where's the logic there? Impossible. Now think about how this carries to the spiritual world. What are we doing constantly there? Trying to experience, trying to do one technique after another. Because see, if I apply pranayama this way, I'm not applying it in another way. I'm not. If I do my mudra like this, what about the mudra like this? If I do my mudra like that, what about a mudra like that? In other words, every single technique that you apply, everything that you do is limited by its nature. And therefore, a limited person using that limited technique, trying to gain something that is limitless, Satya, Brahman, there's just no logic. It's mathematically impossible. So now this causes us to say, what is thus the solution? In fact, even the Upanishads say that straight from Upanishad, if you are limited and you're acquiring something that's limited, because it's what? Dependent on time and space, because see, everything that begins is going to end. That's why we say there's no such thing as enlightenment, because if I say I'm enlightened now, what does that say? I wasn't enlightened 1 minute ago. And that totally contradicts what is eternal, consciousness. So how can I suddenly say I have consciousness and I didn't before, when consciousness means awareness, and I'm aware of what? Me having some kind of a state of bliss, but I was also aware of me not having that bliss just a minute ago. So where's the logic there? I was aware either way. I was aware as a person of not having any kind of extraordinary experience, and now I apply a limited technique, and I am still aware of some kind of an extraordinary experience. What's changed? Mithya, the vikara, the experience has changed, but what has stayed the same in ignorance, but also stays the same in knowledge? My awareness. That awareness, tattvamasi, you are. So that means we're coming back to something that is never changing, always present, never not present. You're totally familiar with it. You're never unfamiliar with it. And even if you try to question it, it's still there. Even if you try to doubt it, it's still there. Even if you try to deny it, it's still there. How is it there? Because there's an awareness of you trying to doubt it. There's an awareness of you trying to mistreat it. There's an awareness of you trying to negate it. The awareness cannot be negated. No matter what you do, even if you try not to be aware, guess what? You're still aware of trying to not to be aware. You see, that means you cannot eliminate your self-awareness, which is existence itself. That's why we equate Sat Chit Ananda. Sat existence is Chit awareness. That means your existence is your awareness and your awareness is your existence. They're synonymous. Okay, so now let's continue this spiritual journey, okay, trying to look for the solution. So now eventually the person probably is crazy by now, they've seen that nothing works, they're probably very disappointed, and they say to themselves, okay, or they start to accept, okay, I'm a limited person, and no matter what I've done, no matter what I've tried, it hasn't worked. That's the conclusion, eventually, after maybe a couple of lifetimes, or maybe this life, it doesn't matter. And then they say, okay, could I already then be complete? It comes in a subtle thought. Could, or if it's not that, could I be looking at this from a wrong way? Could I already, in fact, be what I'm looking for? Could I already be the answer? At that stage, there is no answer. There's only speculation, but there is no proof, right? So now what happens is the person starts to what? Change their path from karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, whatever yoga, into the highest path, jnana yoga, knowledge. What is this course? Jnana yoga. Why? Because there is nothing, as I said, that you can do about the fact that you're already aware. There is no technique that's going to let you know that. It's only a matter of knowing it through knowledge. That's what Jnana Yoga provides. So that means the eventual path leads, the person eventually becomes what we call a Jijnasu. So repeat that name after me. Jijnasu. Okay, so now what is a Jijnasu? A Jijnasu is a person, actually I think most of us, 99% in Vedanta are Jijnasu. So let's find out what this is. The Jijnasu's thought is like this. If I am already full and complete and whole, after all, the teacher has said that, the Upanishads say that, the Gita says that, everyone says that, it's always, Ramana says that, everyone says that, then why despite that fact, do I still feel limited, incomplete, unhappy, and why do I not, quote, feel full and complete and whole? That's a natural question that comes, right? It happens all the time. I get this, but I don't feel it, right? Okay, so the definition of Jijnasu is so I want to now know what is the nature of I. It's no longer trying to expose the I to different experiences. Now that I gets taken and that the attention gets turned onto the I. It's no longer because see, every experience, including meditation itself, depends on somebody being present. But that somebody who's present hasn't even been investigated who that is. So it's almost like, well, who's experiencing this experience if that I hasn't even been inquired into? So that's where that eventually Jnana they start to suspect something's wrong here. The I who is experiencing doesn't even know who it is or what it is. So now let me inquire into the I. And to do that, I need knowledge. And to get knowledge, I need to look for what? A teacher. I need to look for a teaching. Okay, so now what happens, let's go through this step, how it happens now. So now a Jnana begins through their inquiry, their suspecting inquiry, something's wrong here, I need to look into this I. They start to read alone. First step. Now watch how, even as a Jnana, the refinement of desires doesn't stop. And if it does stop, it causes another spiritual stagnation which can last for years. You'll see how. Because see, even reading alone can last for a lifetime, right? Or watching videos, or listening to audio courses. That can last, because after all, hey, I've got the internet, I don't need to travel, I don't need to waste my time coming. It's all there. It's a modern world. What's the problem? So then that idea alone can last a lifetime. It doesn't stop there. A Jnana needs to move on. Then they start to say, well, I don't actually understand the scriptures. They're paradoxical, they're contradictory. I still don't get it. I'm still reading the scriptures day after day. I'm still fascinated by the knowledge of what they're saying, and I still don't get it. Therefore, the desire still remains, but now the refinement starts to modify from reading solo, studying solo, into asking for help, asking for a teacher. And a teacher who is going to expound or provide the contradictions or explanations to what these scriptures, what they're saying, and provide the direct meaning of what they're actually saying. Now it doesn't stop there, because you can still have a person, a Jnana, being with one teacher for 50 years and nothing happens. Why? Because they're refusing to move on. They're still dependent. They're putting their what? They're still in this form of, where's that logic? I am not fulfilled, and by me being in proximity of the teacher, I'm going to fulfill myself. They're still making the same mistake. So that means he has to further refine the desire. So then the desire eventually goes into keeping my focus on the truth and not the teacher. The teacher is just a vehicle and nothing else, just another person. That's when their desire starts to sort of, you could put the teacher back on a normal ground. You've seen this in the spiritual world where the teacher's up there sitting and everyone's like, oh, they're big and I'm small. You know, they've got the power, they've got enlightenment, and I'm just a small person, I'm a nobody. And I need to listen and I need to pay attention. You see, that's what, stage 2 or whatever it is. That's still what, giving my power away to something else. In other words, the Jnana on stage 3 has to recognize that the point is who I am, the unchanging reality. And the teacher is just there as a means to help you recognize that. Once that's over, let go of the teacher. They're useless. Okay, so the next step is, even there I can get stuck. Because now I can say, I can get attached to the teacher, and I can use that as an excuse to keep coming back. Because they make me feel good, right? Happens a lot. And they have a good community, they have friends, it's all fine. You know, just keep coming. And they get stuck in that stage. You have to keep moving on. That's the point. How do you move on? By letting the teacher actually show me, by what? Putting my own agendas aside and letting this be about truth, letting what this is actually about, and that is who I am, what I am, having that stick, having that be firm, completely established in my knowledge, and then it doesn't even stop there. Because at stage 4, when the teacher does show you, what happens? You recognize, oh, I cannot be anything other than the unchanging, the invariable. But it doesn't stop there. Because why? Desire still continues. Desire is out of your control. Ishwara Srishti is created by Ishwara, not you. So what happens then? Because the desire is still there, it has a further refinement into, I want to share it with others. And you are totally helpless to this. You can't help it. Because, you see, if you have one desire, then what? Once that desire is over, do you just kind of, what, slack back and do nothing? No. And even that slacking back and doing nothing, even that's a desire. But what? Once one desire is over, the next one is waiting. So that means, how to put this into practice, desire, number one, is never going to end. Number two, one needs to keep moving forward. Why? In order to take advantage of this prasad, this desire, which is there to aid you to the highest truth, and not to get attached, not to try to, do these things that imply I can do this by myself, because that's actually the most subtle, sophisticated level of spiritual arrogance, to actually say that I can do this by myself. How? If you could have done it by yourself, you would have done it a long time ago. Think about it. Who wants to suffer? Nobody. Who wants temporary happiness? Nobody. If we knew how to solve the problem and permanently be happy, we would have done it a long time ago. But what happens is we can't, so then we have to ask for help. Yeah, that's where this whole lineage, this guru shishya parampara starts, this guru teacher. That's why it's there. Okay, so now let's put a summary to this. We have toys to girls, toys to boys, whatever it is, there's a modification of desire. Or from toys to boys to a better self-image, to a better career, to a greater sense of joy, a greater sense of freedom. All of these things are subject to change. Even peace, even joy, even harmony in life, even that is subject to change. Try having harmony in life when your dog's barking constantly, right? So in other words, we cannot depend on objects in the world because we don't know when something's going to pop up and suddenly interfere with our, quote, peace. Okay, so that means so it then moves forward into the spiritual marketplace, and then it moves forward into what we call a jijnatsu, someone who wants to know the nature of the I, and then even it doesn't stop there. Sometimes the person wants to share it, or sometimes not. It doesn't matter. If not, then what happens is one goes back to life. They continue the scripture. They continue karma yoga. Why? What do we say from the start? If not, then perspective gets lost. My value. It doesn't matter if somebody knows who they are. It's irrelevant. They're still up against the whole. There's so many things that the mind wants to be exposed to. That means that the point that I'm making is having scriptures, having religion in life, the scriptures, shruti, heard, or smrti, that means it's passed on, is primary. Whether I know who I am or not, it doesn't matter. Because if not, the person loses perspective. Happens very often. Somebody gains the knowledge of who they are, and then they go and teach, and they stop learning for themselves, and they slowly start falling into other people's problems, other people's issues, and then they go, oh, I'm free, and now I can do whatever I want, and then they give themselves, to I don't know, for men, it's usually they end up, with sleeping around. That's another loss of perspective. So it doesn't end. So one has to keep perspective constantly through the scriptures and the shruti. So we also said there is nothing wrong with desire. We now got that? As long as it is within the confines of dharma. Dharma means what? What is most appropriate right now? Ahimsa, that is not non-injury. Or in other words, is this hurting me? Or is this hurting another? Is this an agenda of trying to gain something, trying to profit? Or is this a genuine offering? In other words, dharma can also, you could say, am I trying to extract? Or am I trying to give? It's a giving. So dharma is a giving attitude. So that means there is nothing wrong with enjoying what is present in life as long as it is within the realm of dharma. That's the message. The realm of what is good, what is right. How do you know what is right? That is where you need the scriptures. Because the whole point of scriptures is to let us know how to live, how to be a human being and follow the right code of conduct, the right morals, the right virtues. That's where we need religion, because that's the point of religion, of the scriptures. Science provides us the means to get to that. It provides us the means to live comfortably and have a roof over our house and study properly. But if we don't make use of both, then what's the point of what's the point of one or the other? Because then science by itself leads us to what? Enjoy life, feel more and give more to our senses. Religion by itself ends up into what? Not having a roof over your head. And that results in what? Trying to make money, and that's anxiety. And if I have anxiety because I don't have money, how am I supposed to learn and study and contemplate in peace? That means science and religion go together. And the Vedic culture, the Upanishads are very clear about this. They do not discard one nor the other. They say live both in peace and harmony because they both support each other. After all, Sarva Brahmaha, everything is one. How can I deny wealth? When wealth is the very means to which has given me the potential to be sitting here, for my dad to take us from South Africa to Australia. See, so in other words, wealth is beautiful. It's given to you by Ishwara. But at the same time, it's not enough. You need that other aspect of life, and that is the Shruti, the scriptures, to keep you on track.
Yeah.
And
you can either live in abundance or you can live in shortage.
That's
if
right.
You're in shortage, your attention can't be on the spirituality because you're preoccupied with making the short.
That's right. It becomes a jiva srishti, my own imagination, because I lost perspective. Okay, so even in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll end with this, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, which is a symbol of the Lord, of Ishwara, of the whole, says, so this is what Ishwara says, I am desire not opposed to dharma. That's what the Lord says. I am desire not opposed to what is right. Think about all of the beautiful things in this world. Yeah. All right, so now this is what we've covered today, desire, how to manage desire, the wrong way of going about treating desire. We've also covered about this endless path that one can get stuck in the spiritual marketplace if they're not addressing desire properly. And we also covered how the natural progression of a person goes from trying out different techniques, methods, into eventually coming into the Jnana yoga, into knowledge, to recognize who they actually are. Because there's nothing that you can do about who you already are, other than to know who you already are. You can't get what you already have. That means no technique, nothing in this world that anyone can offer you, like a Shakti path, like the third eye opening. There's nothing anyone can give you because you already have that. Yeah, because you already are that. That's what we say, Tattvamasi. That's a Mahavakya from the Chandogya Upanishad. Okay, so the takeaway message is appreciating desire, that it's there only to enjoy and to understand that it's subject to change. And this desire is to be used how I put my free will into it. And that free will, if it is in accordance with the scriptures, then it leads you to the highest path. That is the end of one's, the highest purpose of living as a man or a woman on earth. And that is to realize the nature of the unchanging I. All right, let's close. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
I was interested, we didn't explore that one about the Adana and the Himsa. The sort of corruption and perversion, I guess, is where that would be.
Yeah, okay, to get object, apply Himsa or Dharma. That's the wrong way to go about it. Okay, well, let's say that, I need money, and I desperately need money. I really need the money. And the way to do that is the easy way, right? I just go pick pickpocket somebody. It's easy. So that means I've gotten what I needed. But how did I get about doing that? In other words, I did it in a way that hurts another person. Because if you had your pocket, taking something out of your pocket, you would not appreciate it.
And that was on the material level, and on the spiritual level, in terms of the, how would you...
Yeah, spiritual level could be, in a form of...
Emotional blackmail or something like that regard.
Well, it can also be comparing, religions and disqualifying, one religion, saying how it's, not the right thing, and my religion is the one to follow, and yours is wrong. In fact, if you understand the truth, you understand they're all trying to point us. In fact, all religion, what they do have right is they're trying to reduce the levels of rajas and tamas in the mind and increase the level of sattva. All religions do that. In other words, calm the mind down and make the person peaceful. I don't know, because I haven't investigated all of them, how well they've got this principle, but I've not seen this principle anywhere. This model, yeah. But they all have it right in terms of living a pure life. That's where all religion comes. Yeah.
You talked a bit on ego, on pride. Would that relate to ego? So you don't want to get rid of it entirely, you can't, but you need to have the right relationship with it.
You can't get rid of the ego. You can't. Okay. So what is the ego? The ego is simply the doer and the enjoyer of the relationship. And the ego gets fueled by my value towards that relationship. So if my value is to live that relationship or have that relationship in sense of harmony and where it's communication or union, then the ego is going to own that experience and project that onto, in terms of your organs of action. It's going to act like that. So we have to trace it all the way back, because see, the ego is the doer, Kelsey, and the ego is the one that makes how one communicates with the other. So we have to go one step back and recognize how I communicate comes from where? My mind and intellect. And what is inside the mind and intellect? My values, my knowledge about reality. So that means if my knowledge about reality is everything is one, and I see oneness in you, I see oneness in all, then that's going to get expressed through the ego, and the ego is going to speak differently, it's going to act differently, it's going to behave differently. If my training, if my education is one of separation, and I'm better, or I like to win, or I like to whatever the circumstances are, then that's going to get fed. That's why there's a circle going into the ego. That's going to get fed into the ego, and the ego is going to feed the 5 organs of action, for example, my speech and my hands, and it's going to say no, right? So what is this no? That's coming from that intellect and the mind. So the answer is you're never going to get rid of the ego. It's just a matter of what is one educated? What information do I have? What knowledge do I have about reality? And that is going to get naturally expressed in a form of what I say and how I relate to other people. Yeah. If, for example, let's say that I don't have the right, let's say I apply adharma, and so what happens is that adharma, which is a tendency, is going to modify how I think about the response of the other person. So then, even though my response wants to be to reply, because my vasana is tendency to reply in an injurious way, to hurt another, then it's going to modify my response through the ego, and then the ego is going to, act out that behavior.
But does the ego not always try to separate and separate itself from the unity, from the whole?
No. You see, in Vedanta, we're very clear what the ego means. Ego is just another faculty. It's the owner of the I. It's the owner of your experience. Okay, it's not a mind of its own. Because I know in the spiritual world we talk about ego as if it's some kind of a person or some kind of an entity. Ego is just a faculty, because if I don't have the ego, then who's going to own the fact that this person's talking? You need to have an ownership of your experience. And that ownership is made possible by this principle which we call ahankara. Ahamkara, the ego. The I, the aham, the I doer, the I enjoyer. So that means everything, every experience eventually ends up here. Because somebody has to own the fact that you're thinking. How would you know that you're thinking unless there's a principle that owns that there's a body thinking? That's why you need the ego. Yeah.
But isn't that what limits the experience?
Of course it limits the experience, because like I said, if you're a person, you're not, if you're a man, you're not a woman, if you're a woman, you're not. So the point is not to focus on the limitation, because just by the nature of mithya, everything is limited. The point is to recognize, despite being, quote, limited in terms of the body, mind, because you can only know so much, right? You can only remember so much. That's a limitation, it's fine. Despite that, it's a matter of changing your focus to what is unlimited, which is awareness. So that means the limitation is never, because there is no such thing as ending in the universe. The limitation is going to continue. That's what makes the world beautiful. If everything is just one thing, like what kind of creation is, that's a defective creation. You need different colors, different... Did you ever think why we have colors? God could have made the world black and white just as well, right? So why do we have... See, so in other words, everything's given as a form of vikara. It's all modifications. That's what it means, endless possibilities. But every possibility in itself is limited. That means endless types of wave formations, but every wave in itself is that wave. It's not another wave. So the point is not to go, enlightenment means I am, but I'm still limited. I don't feel limitless. Where's the error in that thinking? Okay, I'm going to role play. I don't know who I am, because I know that it's all unchanging, but I still feel limited. Somebody tell me, where's the problem in that thing?
Disregarding awareness and the limited ability is becoming the all-pervading limited boundary.
Any other comments?
You're focusing on the limit.
That's right. Limit. That's right. And so in other words, the jumper... No, this is not a jumper. The shirt is never separate from the cotton. You see, if it's one shirt, it's not another shirt. Yeah. So the problem comes is when we put the awareness on the shirt and not on the actual substance of the shirt, which makes all shirts, which is cotton awareness. So that means moksha is simply a matter of changing your focus from the changing to the moksha is changing your focus from the variable to the invariable. To the invariable, yeah. Thanks. Okay, so the good news is, once this focus is changed, it's just a matter of knowing it. Sanchita karma stops instantly. That means another birth is impossible. That's the only way to exhaust karma. In other words, to completely cut off karma. What does continue is prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma is karma that is yet to play out in this life. So that means simply that if I released an arrow in a stage of ignorance, and then that arrow's traveling, right, towards my target. Now, let's say I finally get this knowledge, and I go, I'm the unchanging, right? Now that arrow's going to hit the target regardless. And now the police go and say, obviously Andre hit that deer. it was an endangered species. So now we're going to go and hunt Andre down. And then I go, what did I do? You see? So that means it doesn't matter. The prarabdha karma is still going to continue. But you shouldn't take it personally, because it's still playing out from what you've done in the past. What's going to happen, what is the difference is sanchita can no longer, because you've changed your focus from the causes, which belongs to the causal body, which gives birth to the subtle body, to the unchanging. Now, where's the logic for a new body how can you get a new body if your focus is on what is already present all the time? What's the point of another... See, in other words, the bodies still continue. Okay? Because see, Ishwara Srishti means the world created by Ishwara still continues, whether the person is here or not. When a person is born, the world was already created. So it's not your world, it's Ishwara's world. Okay, so that means even when one realizes who they are, I have to use an analogy here. It's like this. Okay, let's have a wave in the ocean, right? And that wave, of course, believes it's the wave. It's the form of the wave. Anything it's limited, all the other things come with it. Sadness, I'm not a bigger wave, and so on. What happens is, when that wave changes focus from the wave form to H2O, which pervades the entire ocean meaning Ishwara, not only pervades the ocean, but also every other wave. So when that one wave changes its focus from the wave to H2O, then guess what? Everything still continues. Nothing changed. That's why we say nothing ever changes here. Everything's already present. This is it. You're never going to get a better creation than right now. It's just a matter of where is your focus. Is my focus on the ever-changing, ever-limited, or is my focus on the unchanging, always present, the H2O? Yeah.
You said before, and you were talking about the spiritual world, I'm sure, and you were using examples, and you said nothing works.
Yeah.
And when you said nothing works, I don't know whether it's my funny mind,
yeah.
But I thought, well, isn't that really you're saying also at the same time that no thing works, and therefore consciousness works?
Yeah, consciousness always has been present. Yeah, consciousness has been present.
Yes.
It's just that my focus was in the wrong place.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was trying to find what was already present in other modifications, in other practices.
Yes.
But what I was looking for, I already was.
Yes.
In other words, the seeker was the sought. In other words, the looker was looking for something that the looker is already.
Yes.
So that motivated the looker to try to find something, thinking that what the looker is somewhere else.
Yes.
That's Dvaita, that's duality.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's answer. Questions?
Are they different? Because I know awareness and existence are synonymous, right?
Yeah.
Are there different terms for that in?
Sat, existence, Chit, awareness. So why do we use Sat, Chit, Ananda? Because it's not meant to imply a different existence. Like awareness is a different existence to existence itself. And Ananda is a different realm to Sat and Chit. It's just describing what existence is or what awareness is. So your existence right now, it equals awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is existence awareness? It's defined by the last word, ananda, which people think it's bliss. It means limitless. What does limitless mean? It means nothing can limit it. That's why we can have so many potentials, so many varieties of things. That's why the ocean can always change in so many different ways. Why? Because the water allows it to. The H2O is never limiting the ocean to just one form. It's just there, and it's because of the water being so fluid that the ocean can move in whatever way it wants.
I think that brings it back to what you were just saying about the thing.
Yes.
The no thing is just the mass, the whole.
Yeah.
The thing is the wave.
Yes.
So the no thing is when it's just the H2O.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, good you picked it up. Good, same wavelength.